Ladies and gentlemen, basketball fans around the world, welcome back to the channel. Today, we are breaking down a seismic shift in the NBA landscape, a move so massive, so completely game-changing, that it has entirely rewritten the script for the upcoming season. If you thought the Eastern Conference was settling into a predictable rhythm, if you thought the hierarchy was finally established, I need you to completely throw those assumptions out the window, because the boogeyman is back. The silent assassin, the two-time NBA Finals MVP, the man who single-handedly shattered dynasties and altered the course of franchise histories, Kawhi Leonard, has officially returned to the Eastern Conference. And he hasn't just returned to any team. In a blockbuster trade that has sent shockwaves from Los Angeles all the way to Canada, Kawhi Leonard is officially a Toronto Raptor once again. Just let that sink in for a moment. Close your eyes and transport yourself back to 2019. Think about the sheer terror that Kawhi Leonard instilled in the hearts of Eastern Conference contenders. The Toronto Raptors, a franchise that had repeatedly hit a ceiling, pushed all their chips to the center of the table for a one-year rental of Kawhi Leonard. And what did he do? He delivered one of the most legendary, iconic, and dominant singular playoff runs in the history of the sport of basketball. He marched into the East and systematically dismantled every giant in his path. And now, at 35 years old, coming off an absolutely spectacular, rejuvenated season where he averaged nearly 28 points per game, he is back. This is not just a reunion. It is a declaration of war on the rest of the Eastern Conference. For Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers, this is the literal return of a nightmare. For Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks, it is a revival of the wall that once kept them from the promised land. We are talking about a player who possesses an unprecedented psychological edge over the very best players in the East. The sheer magnitude of this trade cannot be overstated. According to the reports that have completely taken over the basketball world, the Los Angeles Clippers have agreed to send Kawhi Leonard to the Raptors in exchange for a massive haul that includes two-time All-Star Brandon Ingram, sharp-shooting guard Grady Dick, unprotected first-round picks in 2031 and 2033, a 2027 first-round pick swap, and 2 future second-round picks. This is a king's ransom, but it is for a literal king of the court. The Toronto Raptors are telling the world that they are not satisfied with just building a fun, young, competitive core. They are not content with merely making the playoffs and bowing out in the first or second round. By bringing back the man who delivered their only NBA championship, Masai Ujiri and the Toronto front office are looking at a vulnerable Eastern Conference and deciding that right now is the time to strike. They are banking on the fact that Kawhi Leonard's mere presence on the floor elevates everyone around him. They are betting that the ghosts of 2019 will once again haunt the arenas in Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and Boston. The landscape of the entire NBA has just been tilted on its axis. Every general manager in the Eastern Conference is currently scrambling, looking at their whiteboards, and trying to figure out how on earth they're going to deal with the inevitable reality of facing Kawhi Leonard in a 7-game playoff series. The claws return to the North, and the nightmare for the East has officially begun all over again. Let us transition into a deep dive analysis of exactly how this deal reshapes the league, examining the profound implications for both the Toronto Raptors and the Los Angeles Clippers, and dissecting why this move strikes such deep fear into the hearts of the Eastern Conference elite. First, we have to look at what the Toronto Raptors are actually building here, because it is a masterpiece of roster construction. Since Kawhi left, the Raptors have undergone multiple iterations, searching for a new identity. They found their cornerstone in Scottie Barnes, a player whose trajectory has been nothing short of phenomenal. Barnes has evolved into the cultural and tactical heartbeat of this franchise. Now, imagine pairing Scottie Barnes, a dynamic, versatile defensive menace with elite playmaking abilities, with Kawhi Leonard, arguably the greatest two-way wing of his generation. The mentorship alone is invaluable. Scottie Barnes learning the intricacies of half-court execution, the nuances of elite isolation defense, and the sheer willpower required to win a championship from Kawhi Leonard is a terrifying prospect for the rest of the league. But it is not just Kawhi and Scottie. The Raptors managed to pull off this blockbuster trade without gutting their core rotation. They retained R.J. Barrett, who has found a home and a rhythm playing alongside Barnes. They kept Emmanuel quickly, the lightning-fast guard who can push the pace and space the floor. They held on to Jakob Poeltl, providing them with the necessary rim protection and rebounding to anchor a championship-level defense. You put Kawhi Leonard into a starting lineup with Quickly, Barrett, Barnes, and Poeltl under strategic guidance of head coach Darko Rajakovic, and suddenly you have a team that has no glaring weaknesses. They have perimeter defense. They have rim protection. They have elite transition scoring. And most importantly, they now have the ultimate half-court closer. When the game slows down in the fourth quarter of a Game 7, when systems break down and you just need someone to get you a bucket against a set defense, Toronto now has the ultimate weapon back in their arsenal. Now, let us analyze the nightmare aspect of this trade, specifically focusing on Joel Embiid and Giannis Antetokounmpo. You have to understand the psychological scars that Kawhi Leonard left on these two MVP-caliber players. Let us rewind to the 2019 Eastern Conference semifinals. Game 7, Scotiabank Arena. The score is tied. The clock is ticking down. Kawhi Leonard takes the ball, dribbles into the right corner, and with Joel Embiid, a 7-foot behemoth, closing out perfectly, Kawhi fades away and launches a high-arcing shot. The ball bounces on the rim once, twice, 3 times for times, and drops through the net. It was the first Game 7 buzzer beater in NBA history. It was a shot that broke the Philadelphia 76ers. It sent Joel Embiid walking into the tunnel with tears in his eyes. For years, the Sixers have been trying to recover from the trauma of that singular moment. They have changed coaches. They have changed co-stars, but the memory of Kawhi Leonard ripping their hearts out remains. And now, just as Embiid is desperately trying to solidify his legacy with a championship, the architect of his greatest heartbreak is back in his conference. Then you have Giannis Antetokounmpo. In 2019, the Milwaukee Bucks were up 2-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals. Giannis looked utterly unstoppable, a runaway freight train headed straight for the NBA Finals. And then Nick Nurse and the Raptors made the adjustment. They put Kawhi Leonard as the primary defender on Giannis, and they built a wall. Kawhi's strength, his unbelievable hand size, his anticipation, and his lower body leverage completely neutralized the Greek freak. The Raptors won 4 straight games. They reverse-swept the Bucks. Giannis had to completely reevaluate his game after that series. Yes, Giannis has won a championship since then. He has grown as a player. But when you look across the court and see the man who exposed your every flaw on national television, who stood his ground when you tried to bulldoze him, it changes the dynamic. It changes the atmosphere. Kawhi Leonard is the ultimate mismatch for both Embiid and Giannis because he has the physical tools to bother them defensively, and they do not have the personnel to stop his mid-range surgical strikes on the other end. We also have to evaluate the Los Angeles Clippers side of this monumental transaction. Why would the Clippers trade a player who just had his best season in years, averaging 27.9 points in 65 games and earning All-NBA honors? It comes down to a harsh reality check and the impending financial doom of the second apron. The Clippers have been trying to make the Kawhi Leonard experiment work for years, but injuries continually derailed their ultimate goal of winning a championship in Los Angeles. Faced with Kawhi entering the final year of his deal and demanding a massive 2-year, $124 million extension, the Clippers had to make a business decision. They also have the looming shadow of an NBA investigation regarding salary cap circumvention, making their front office even more anxious about their long-term flexibility. By executing this trade, the Clippers essentially hit the reset button while remaining somewhat competitive. They acquire Brandon Ingram, a 2-time All-Star who provides immediate scoring punch, though he brings his own hefty contract. They acquire Grady Dick, a promising young shooter. But most importantly, they replenish their completely barren draft capital, acquiring unprotected first-round picks in 2031 and 2033, along with a pick swap, allows the Clippers to finally look toward the future. They just drafted Keaton Wagler with the 5th overall pick in the 2026 draft, a player with immense upside. The Clippers are pivoting. They are acknowledging that the championship window for their previous era has slammed shut, and they are stocking up on assets to build around their new young core. It is a bitter pill to swallow for a franchise that opened a state-of-the-art arena hoping to hang banners, but it is a necessary pivot to avoid a decade of basketball purgatory. But let us bring the focus back to the Eastern Conference. The New York Knicks have built a phenomenal roster and rightfully hold a favorite status. The Boston Celtics are always going to be a powerhouse, but the Toronto Raptors have just catapulted themselves directly into the top tier of championship contenders. They have successfully executed one of the hardest maneuvers in professional sports. They rebuilt their culture with youth and then injected it with proven championship-level superstar talent without sacrificing their depth. The Eastern Conference is going to be an absolute bloodbath this season. Every night is going to be a heavyweight fight. But in a 7-game series, when the game slows down, when the whistle gets swallowed, and when isolation scoring becomes the most valuable commodity on the planet, how many players in the world are you taking over a healthy Kawhi Leonard? The list is incredibly short, and that is why Toronto made this move. As we move toward the conclusion of this extensive deep dive, we must talk about the final critical pieces of this massive puzzle. The financial reality, the inherent risks, and the monumental legacy implications of Kawhi Leonard's return to Toronto. We cannot discuss this trade without acknowledging the massive financial commitment the Raptors are making. According to insiders, as part of this reunion, the Raptors and Kawhi are expected to agree to a 2-year extension worth approximately $124 million. This will lock Kawhi into the 2028 to 2029 season, meaning Toronto will be paying him an average of more than $60 million annually as he approaches his late 30s. That is an astronomical number. It is a terrifying number when you factor in Kawhi's well-documented history of knee issues and load management. The Raptors are essentially making a $124 million bet on a player's physical longevity. But here's the undeniable truth of the National Basketball Association. You do not win championships by playing it safe. You do not hang banners by hoarding cap space and being terrified of risk. You win championships by acquiring top 5 talent and rolling the dice. The Raptors learned this lesson in 2019. They took a massive gamble trading their franchise icon DeMar DeRozan for Kawhi, knowing he could walk away after 1 year. The gamble paid off with a parade. They are doubling down on that philosophy now. They are paying a premium because they know that when the lights are brightest, Kawhi Leonard delivers. They are paying for the aura, they are paying for the defensive versatility, and they are paying for the absolute certainty he provides in clutch situations. If Kawhi only plays 60 games in the regular season, the Raptors can survive that. They have the depth to stay afloat. What they are paying for is 16 wins in the spring. Furthermore, we have to talk about what this means for Kawhi Leonard's historical legacy. Think about where he already stands in the pantheon of basketball greats. He is a 2-time NBA champion, a 2-time Finals MVP with 2 completely different franchises, a multi-time Defensive Player of the Year, and a member of the NBA's 75th anniversary team. But if he manages to pull this off, if he goes back to Toronto, a franchise that had been wandering the wilderness since he left, and leads this new generation, leads Scotty Barnes and R.J. Barrett to another NBA title, it would fundamentally alter his placement in the all-time rankings. LA Times. Winning a championship in 2019 was viewed by some as a magical, one-off mercenary run. Returning 7 years later, in the twilight of his prime, and doing it again would cement him as one of the ultimate winners in the history of team sports. It would elevate him into a tier of historical greatness, reserved for the absolute titans of the game. It proves that his system, his stoic approach, and his sheer basketball brilliance are entirely scalable and independent of era or surrounding cast. He will become the undisputed king of the North, forever immortalized not just for a single season, but for defining 2 distinct eras of franchise. Ultimately, this trade is a massive injection of adrenaline into the upcoming NBA season. It gives us incredible storylines, incredible matchups, and incredible drama. The next time the Toronto Raptors step onto the floor at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, the atmosphere is going to be electric. The tension is going to be palpable. The next time Kawhi lines up against Giannis in Milwaukee, the basketball world is going to stop and watch. The Eastern Conference has transformed from a strategic battleground into a survival horror scenario for the top contenders, because the ultimate boogeyman is back in the building. That is going to do it for today's massive breakdown. The landscape of the NBA has shifted, and we are going to be here covering every single ripple effect of this historic trade. I want to hear your thoughts down below. Did the Raptors give up too much future draft capital? Will Kawhi stay healthy enough to make this $124 million extension worth it? And who do you think is trembling more right now, Joel Embiid or Giannis Antetokounmpo? Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay passionate about the game. Stay tuned for more deep dives, and I will see you in the next one.